everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm really excited for today's recipe. We are going to be making some strawberry lemon blondies. Now this is really different from some of the other things that we've been making so far, so I'm really excited to make these with you today. And I'm gonna run through some of the ingredients that you are going to need for this recipe. So what I have in front of me right now is a bowl of strawberries. This is just one package of strawberries, a lemon, 1 egg, flour, sugar, baking powder, salt, and 1 cup of butter. So that is what we are going to need to make our strawberry lemon blondies dough. Now, after we make the dough, we are going to make a really nice glaze that's gonna go on top of them. So that's gonna be really nice as well. So a couple things that I need you to do before we get started. I need you to go ahead and preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. So 350 degrees Fahrenheit. You need to wash your hands if you haven't already. And then you are going to grab a 9-inch by 9-inch square baking pan. So just any square baking pan, but ideally a 9 by 9-inch pan. And you are going to line it with parchment paper like I've done here. The reason we would like to do parchment paper is because we are going to take these out of our pan here, and we're gonna be glazing them later. So it's really important that you leave a little extra parchment paper that you can grab after they're baked to lift them up out of the pan here. So go ahead and do that. And now let's get started. So the first thing we need to do is cream together our butter and sugar until fluffy. So for this recipe, you need 1 cup of butter. And mine is at room temperature. So it's really important that your butter is at room temperature. So there's my butter. And today I'm gonna be using a hand mixer because this is what I think most of you have. So I'm gonna be using this today with you all. To avoid some of the mess, I'm going to beat my butter just for a couple seconds before I add the sugar. And hopefully it reduces my mess a little bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I find when I beat the butter a little bit before adding in sugar, it helps to kind of reduce what spills out onto the counter. Okay, so for sugar, we need 3/4 cups of sugar. So I've got my 1/4 measuring cup here, and I'm gonna measure 3 of these. And I am going to use a knife to just level this off here. So there is 1. There's 2. And there's 3. Okay. I'm just gonna put my sugar aside there. And now we are gonna beat this together until it's light and fluffy. So this might take a while, but I will kind of show you what it looks like as I go. So it's creaming together nicely right now. Okay, so it's creaming together really nicely, as you can see. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to scrape down the sides of my bowl with a spatula, and I'm going to continue beating it for maybe another at least 30 seconds. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that now. And I'm gonna turn up my speed. Okay, so I think that is beaded together really nicely. It is really nice and fluffy right now, so that's exactly what I want. Now, what I need you to do is grab a small bowl, because we are going to be cracking our egg and putting it into our butter and sugar mixture. So go ahead and grab a small bowl to crack your egg in, and I'm gonna do that now. Again, the bowl is just to make sure that we don't get any eggs into our mixture. So I'm gonna put that in there. And I'm just gonna put my bowl aside. Now we are going to beat in our egg until it's nicely combined. So this is looking really good, but to make sure it's mixed in really nicely, I'm gonna scrape down the sides of my bowl again with a spatula. It's good to do that once in a while, just to make sure that everything is mixed in nicely. Okay, I think that looks really nice. So I think at this point we can actually almost put away our beaters. We're gonna add one more ingredient and then we're gonna put these aside. So now what I need you to do is go ahead and grab your lemon, a cutting board, and a knife. So go ahead and grab those three things. I'm just gonna quickly go ahead and grab a knife. Okay. So this recipe, what it calls for is a 1/4 cup of lemon juice. Now, if you would like to go ahead and measure that perfectly, that's absolutely okay. For me, I think that I'm gonna use the whole lemon because that's gonna give me approximately a 1/4 cup. So I'm not gonna be too picky on measuring the lemon juice. So I'm just gonna use the juice from one whole lemon. And you can do that as well. So we're just gonna cut our lemon in half. So if you don't have a lemon squeezer like I have, that's fine. What you're gonna wanna do if you don't have that is you're gonna wanna just squeeze your lemon in here, but you're gonna wanna cover the bottom with your hand so you don't get any of the seeds in your mixture. but I'm gonna go ahead and use my lemon squeezer because I have one. So I'm just gonna put that in here, and I'm gonna squeeze the juice of my lemon directly into my bowl. So there's 1/2 of my lemon. So again, if you don't have one of these, just squeeze your lemon directly in, but just make sure you're using your hand to catch any seeds, because you don't want any lemon seeds to get in here. And it actually even looks like I got one in here. So make sure to keep an eye on what's going in your bowl, because you don't want to accidentally get a lemon seed in there. And if you see one, just remove it. Okay, there's the second half of my lemon. So I'm gonna go ahead and just put this aside. So this is gonna be our last step that uses the beaters. So we're just gonna beat in our lemon juice. Now, just be aware that the lemon juice might not fully combine as of right now, but that's okay, don't worry about it. So my lemon juice actually combined quite nicely. I only mixed it in for maybe 30 seconds. So at this point, you can go ahead and put your beaters aside. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. We're not gonna be needing them anymore for this recipe. But what you are going to want to grab at this point in time is a whisk, a wooden spoon, and an extra bowl. You want it to be about medium sized, okay? So go ahead and grab a bowl, a whisk, and a wooden spoon. Okay, so I've got my wooden spoon here. Now the next part of this recipe has us whisk together the flour, the baking powder, and the salt together in a bowl. So we're gonna do this in a separate bowl, and then we're gonna be adding it to our wet ingredients here. So first, I'm gonna do the flour. We need 2 1/4 cups of flour for this recipe. So I'm gonna grab a spoon, and I'm gonna spoon my flour into my 1 cup measuring cup. So 2 1/4 cups of flour. So that's actually quite a bit of flour. And I'm gonna go ahead and use my knife to level that off. So there's 1 cup. Go ahead and do the same thing. As always, please pause the video if I'm going too fast for you, but hopefully you're following along with me. That always works really well. Okay, there's our 2nd cup of flour. So go ahead and level that off with your knife and add it to your bowl. So right now we have 2 cups of flour in our bowl. I'm gonna go ahead and grab my 1/4 measuring cup, and I'm going to go ahead and fill that with flour. I'm gonna level that off and add that to our bowl. So that's all of the flour that we need for this recipe. Now I need you to go ahead and grab your baking powder. For this recipe, we only need 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. So grab your measuring spoons if you don't have them out already, and measure out half a teaspoon of baking powder. And yes, I'm gonna level this off with my knife as well. And just add that to your bowl once you have that ready. Next, we need half a teaspoon of salt. So I'm gonna go ahead and measure out half a teaspoon of salt, and yes, absolutely level your salt. You don't want too much salt in these. Okay, that's about half a teaspoon. Okay, using a whisk, you're going to mix these together. Until it's nicely combined. So I'd say mix it for about 15 to 20 seconds until you feel like they are nicely combined. Okay, so I think that looks good. Now we are going to mix our dry ingredients in with our wet ingredients. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna add about half of this for now. You can add it all at once if you'd like, but for me, I think it's gonna make it a little bit easier for me to stir if I add it half at a time. So it's gonna get kind of hard to mix, so you're gonna have to use your muscles. And it's important that you do this part with a wooden spoon. You don't need a beater for this part. So it's combining nicely. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and add the second half of my dry ingredients, and I'm gonna put that bowl aside. That's looking really good so far. It's coming together nicely. Hopefully it's not too hard for you to stir, but it is gonna require some muscles. I don't know about you, but I can smell the lemon juice from just standing in front of my bowl. We're gonna be adding our strawberries next. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna take my spatula and get some of this dough off of my wooden spoon, and I'm gonna keep stirring for a little bit longer. You want to stir it until there's no more flour, until you can't see any more flour at the bottom of your bowl. See, I can still see flour, so I'm just gonna keep mixing it until it's nicely combined. Looks like I'm almost there. Perfect. Again, I'm just gonna take my spatula, get all of this off here. Okay, so right now we have a really nice looking dough that we're gonna add some strawberries to. Now what I need you to do is put this aside just for a second. Now what you need to do is grab your bowl of strawberries, a wooden spoon, sorry, not a wooden spoon, a cutting board, a cutting board and a knife. And then you're gonna need your 1 cup measuring cup. So go ahead and grab your strawberries, a cutting board, a knife, and your 1 cup measuring spoon. Once you grab that, we're gonna go ahead and get started with cutting our strawberries. So for this recipe, we need 1 cup of freshly diced strawberries. So we're gonna go ahead and cut the tops off of these strawberries. I have a lemon seed on the bottom of my cutting board. I just used the same cutting board as my lemon, but I flipped it over. That's okay to do as well. So we're gonna cut off the tops of our strawberries. And I encourage you to cut these in a way that works best for you, but I'm gonna kind of show you what works for me. I'm just gonna put these in my 1 cup measuring cup as I go. So I'm just gonna show you here. So I cut the top off my strawberry, and then I'm gonna cut in half here. Okay, so now I have halves of strawberries. I flip them upside down so they're laying nicely, and I go ahead and cut them in half again. Then I just turn them over so it's easier for me to cut, and I just cut about 2 or 3 times down the strawberry. And I'm gonna show you here, this is about the size of strawberries that I'm putting in. So they're just like little miniature cubes. So you're gonna go ahead and keep cutting strawberries until you have 1 cup. Please be careful as you're doing this. But strawberries are relatively easy to cut, so you should be okay. Just make sure you're cutting off those tops, cut in half, cut in half again, and again, and then about 2 or 3 times. You don't want really massive cubes of strawberries, but you don't want them itty bitty either. So just go ahead and keep cutting your strawberries. I hope that this is really easy for you to follow along with. I think that this is a really different recipe from some of the other things that we have made so far. And I'm going to explain this to you later on as well, but Blondies, they don't actually rise a lot. They're more like a bar, kind of like similar to our raspberry oat bars that we made. They don't rise a whole lot. And you don't want to overbake Blondies. So I'm almost at my 1 cup mark. I'm gonna say probably 2 or 3 more strawberries, and then I'm done. So I'm only using 1 package of strawberries, so you don't actually need a lot for this recipe. So I'm basically at my 1 cup mark, but I'm gonna cut up one more big strawberry. And we're gonna need a few strawberries for our glaze. So we're gonna go ahead and put a couple of these strawberries aside. So make sure you save at least 2 or 3 strawberries for your glaze. Okay, so I've got right here a heaping cup of strawberries. So when I say heaping cup, I mean it goes over the top just a little bit. So go ahead and grab your dough here, and we're going to fold in our strawberries. So folding is just a form of really gentle mixing. So we're just gonna go underneath the dough and around. Underneath the dough and around. Underneath and around. Hopefully you can see that okay. Wow, I've got lots of nice fresh strawberries in here. I added a tiny bit extra, but that's just preference. If you want to do exactly a cup, that's perfectly fine. I just did maybe 1 extra strawberry. Okay. I'm gonna fold it one more time, just until my strawberries are combined. And you want to do that very gently because you don't want to crush your strawberries completely. Okay. So our next step is to grab your 9-inch by 9-inch pan that you put aside earlier. We are now going to add our dough to our pan. Okay, I'm just going to get a spatula and scrape my bowl clean. Okay. There we are. Okay. So for this part here, I'm going to recommend that you use a strong spatula. And what I say by strong spatula is, I will show you. Kind of a hard rubber that doesn't move a whole lot. And we are just gonna go ahead and spread these evenly in the pan. This might take a while because it's not a very liquidy dough. It's quite a strong dough. So it might take a bit of time to get these to spread nice and evenly. These look and smell so good already, and they haven't even been baked yet. So by this time, your oven actually should be ready to go. And as I mentioned earlier, Blondies, they don't rise a ton, so don't panic if you look into your oven and your Blondies haven't risen a lot. That's fine. Because as you could see, we didn't add a whole lot of baking powder in our recipe. Okay, so these are almost spread evenly. Yes, it's definitely good to have kind of a strong spatula to do this, so that it makes it easier for you to spread. Okay, so I actually think that this looks pretty good. Perfect. Okay, and there we have it. So my Blondies are nicely spread out all the way to the edges of the pan. And what you're gonna do now is you are going to bake them for 30 to 35 minutes, just until they start to turn golden brown around the edges and the center is set. So a really good way to tell if they're ready or not is if you insert a toothpick in the middle. You want the toothpick to come out a little bit wet, but not like you want the toothpick to be moist, but not really, really wet and doughy, if that makes sense. So just kind of use your judgment. You want a little bit of moisture on your toothpick, but not for it to be sopping wet with dough. So spread this as evenly as you can in your pan, and then we're gonna throw them in our oven for 30 to 35 minutes. So go ahead and do that. And next we are going to actually make the glaze for our blondies. Okay everybody, the very first step to making our glaze is really simple. You're gonna need to grab 2 or 3 large strawberries. You are going to cut off the tops of them. And now what you need to do is put these 2 strawberries into a blender. Once you do that, you are going to come back. So I'm gonna go ahead and put these in my blender until they're all nice and liquidy, and then we're gonna come back and do the rest of the glaze. Okay everybody, so now we're gonna start making our glaze. I've got my pureed strawberries here, and with me I also have half of a lemon, and I have some powdered sugar. So I'm gonna stop you right now. If you would like, you can go ahead and proceed to make the glaze now. That's what I'm gonna do, and then I'm just gonna set my glaze aside and then add it to my blondies once they're completely cooled. Or you can stop right here and make your glaze later on. Either or works. So for this recipe, I'm not gonna be too picky about measuring my lemon juice or my strawberry puree, because if your mixture is too liquidy, you can always just add powdered sugar. So you don't need to worry about being too precise with this glaze recipe. So I'm just gonna go ahead and measure out 1 cup of powdered sugar. So go ahead and measure out 1 cup of powdered sugar. I'm just gonna scoop it into my measuring cup here. And then I'm going to level it off, just like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and put the powdered sugar in my bowl. Like I said, I'm not going to be too picky about measuring my strawberry puree or my lemon juice. So I'm gonna go ahead and pour my two strawberries that are pureed in my blender here. And what you might want to do is grab a spatula to help you get this all out. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. You want as much of that strawberry puree as you can get. So there we go. There's my strawberry puree. And next, I'm going to measure out half of the juice of a lemon in my bowl here. So as I said before, you can use just lemon juice. That works just as well. But I personally am going to use a fresh lemon. So I'm gonna go ahead and just use the full half a lemon and squeeze it into my bowl here. Perfect. So with a fork, I'm just going to start mixing this together. Now, it's kind of up to your personal preference now at this point. Once it's all mixed together, if you feel like it's too liquidy, go ahead and add more lemon juice. If you feel like it's too thick, go ahead and add more powdered sugar. Okay, so I've almost mixed it completely. And you know what? I think this is actually a perfect consistency. As you can see, it's nice and pink. It's a little bit runny, but it's not overly runny. And yeah, I just think it worked out perfectly. So before we added in our strawberries, I forgot to mention, if you would like, you can strain your strawberry puree to avoid any little mini strawberry seeds coming in here. But personally, I don't mind a little bit of strawberry seeds. So I didn't worry about it. I just added in my strawberry puree as is right after I blended it. And yeah, it looks really, really nice. Good consistency. So I'm gonna leave it exactly like that. So now I'm gonna wait for my blondies to come out of the oven. As soon as they are done completely cooling, I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna show you how to glaze your lemon strawberry blondies. Okay everybody, my blondies are out of the oven and they look great. So I have golden brown edges and the center is set, and these are going to actually resemble the texture of brownies. So what you're gonna do is with your parchment paper that you've left hanging over the side, you're just gonna gently lift them from your pan and they should come out easily just like that. Perfect. So now you're gonna grab your strawberry lemon glaze that we made earlier, give it a little stir if it needs it, and then I'm actually just gonna start putting some of this glaze on top, and then we're going to spread it evenly on the top. And I definitely recommend grabbing a spatula so you can get all of the glaze out from the bowl. Okay, and so now we're just gonna spread that on nice and evenly with your spatula, almost all the way to the edges. Just like that. And try and get as far to the edge as you can, but that's about as far as I'm gonna go. Okay, your blondies are all ready now to eat. So I would actually let these set for maybe a couple minutes, and then I would go ahead and cut into them. So please send me a picture of your blondies once you've cut them and glazed them. I'd love to see how they turned out, and let me know what you think. I will see you next time.